I have no idea where I put my glasses.
Yeah. Over by the TurboGrafx, of course.
Yeah.
Do you need your glasses?
No, I don't need them. I'm just sort of saying I don't know where I put them. That's all.
If I put my glasses somewhere, I would not be able to see. I would be.
Yeah, no, I'm not.
blind.
I'm not that bad. I mostly need them for reading.
Yeah,
but who reads?
That's lucky. That's lucky.
Actually, no, I shouldn't say that. I feel I mostly need them for reading. The doctor has since told me, no, you need them all the time. So I do wear them 100% of the time. But my eyesight isn't so bad that I'm like blind like this. Everything's just fine details are a little blurry. That's all.
I see. Yeah.
I know you guys care.
I do.
Very much.
I care about the eyesight of others. Yes. All right. Should we do this thing? I think we should.
Yeah.
Let's start it up. Hello and welcome to episode 574 of the Player One podcast for Tuesday, November 7th, 2017. I'm your host, Chris Johnston. With me, as always, from Canada and direct off of his Extra Life stream, Mr. Greg Seward.
Hello, hello, and I see some people in our YouTube chat. I haven't seen for about 15 minutes now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. So, hi everybody, and thank you again for hanging out. Thank you again for your generosity. I ended up the number as of right now on Sunday night is raised $7,225.
Excellent. So, Internet high five.
Didn't quite hit my 10,000, but hey, the year's not over. So,
true enough. And you'll be streaming Tuesdays and Thursdays.
Thursdays, 9:30 p.m. Eastern. Yep.
There you go. And joining me from the great state of California, Mr. Ethan Einhorn. Hello.
Hey there, fellas. So I was looking at my clock as I got out of Thor Ragnarok with my kids, and it said that I had 36 minutes for my commute, which would put me home at exactly 4:59 p.m. So I was rushing, trying to get back, and then found out we had a little more time, which was great.
Yeah, well, we pushed the show a half hour because otherwise it would have been right up against the Extra Life stream.
Yeah.
And Greg needed to eat.
Yep. I needed to go get a hamburger.
That's a fair request. What hamburger did you get? Did you go like Five Guys or
No, McDonald's. We don't have stuff like we have nice hamburger joints here, but there was nothing I was going to get in 20 minutes.
Right.
That I could, I just got I got a couple McDonald's hamburgers, ate them in the car on the drive back.
Boom.
So, they did the trick, right?
We don't have Five Guys here either. So
that's the real gamer fuel. Couple of
McDonald's
hamburgers on the ride back home to talk about more video games.
Yeah. Would Jeff Keighley approve of that statement? I'm not sure.
Depends on how much Five Guys paid him.
I think he'd rather you say Doritos and Mountain Dew, wouldn't he?
Yeah, if you washed it down with some Mountain Dew and Doritos, then that's no problem.
Yeah, I just want to make sure we're respectful of the Dorito Pope. That's all.
There you go. So how did the stream go? What was the most fun you had playing these TurboGrafx 16 games?
It went really well. I don't know. I played some really good stuff. Played Bonk 3, played Legendary Axe games, played Castlevania Rondo of Blood, Ninja Spirit, Arizonk. Those were all really good.
Arizonk is really good. Really?
Yeah, I like Arizonk a lot.
Okay.
Played Final Lap Twin, which I had no idea is basically a racing RPG along the lines of something like a Mario Golf, where you're literally just walking around town and people are challenging you to races. Building up, and it's awesome. So yeah, those are probably that was probably my favorite thing because I kind of discovered it. Also, Newtopia 2, which is basically NEC's Zelda clone, was fantastic. Listener Night Attack 09, who revels in being very generous every year and making me play really crap games. So I played a lot of Darkwing Duck on the TurboGrafx, which was god awful. The only thing that I played that was worse was also something else he had requested, which was Fighting Street, which is of course Street Fighter 1.
Oh, right.
It's released for TurboGrafx
on the CD,
and it is terrible.
That is bad.
But overall, it was great. I split it into 2 12-hour streams this year, and I just want to say there's a lot of people in our chat right now that have come over from my stream, and I want to say hello to everybody. Thank you again. A lot of them hung out I had 20 to 30 people viewing at all times for the last
That's great.
24 hours of
That's
streaming. Yeah, and a lot of
you
them.
built that up, man. Over the years.
It was awesome. It was awesome, and I mean, some of them are super generous. Well, all of them are super generous, and I just wanted to say thank you again. And I'm so happy. This cause means so much to me, and I spend a lot of time every year begging people for money for this cause, and I'm always moved by the amount of the outpouring of generosity that I see, especially, and a lot of it's based on our listenership too, right? I mean, this show has given me a platform to be able to bring people from around the world who are interested enough that they'll actually give to again, it's something that's so important to me. So I just want to say thank you again to everybody who's in the chat and everyone who's listening. Really, it means everything to me. So thank you so much.
That's awesome. And if people still want to if people still want to donate, they can do so at extra-life.org/participant/Seward, right?
Yes. Yep. It's good. This goes till the end of the year when it starts all over again for 2018. So,
woo! Well, I'll put the link in the show notes as usual, and people should go do that.
Yes. Thank you.
Yes. All right. Should we talk about some news?
Yeah, a lot of news this week, huh?
There is kind of a lot. It's kind of crazy. Let's talk about Paris Games Week for a little bit.
Okay.
And I want to start by highlighting some game announcements, two in particular. First, Onrush.
Mm-hmm.
From, I believe it's Revolution or Evolution Studios. Or what's the name of the MotorStorm?
Yep. Evolution.
Drive Club people? Okay, Evolution. They are making a game called Onrush, and it's basically MotorStorm, but not with that name. Not branded
Sold.
that way. It's going to be published by Codemasters.
I don't even need to see any of it. I will buy this and play this.
Well, the trailer looks really awesome. So
yeah.
I may be in for this as well, and I'm not even a really big MotorStorm person.
But it's great that Codemasters picked that up too, because those guys know driving like nobody else as well.
Yeah, and I think that studio got a raw deal when it came to Drive Club. I mean, Drive Club was great, but it was also Sony kind of had it standing in for Gran Turismo.
Yeah,
with a fraction of the budget and time, and it was, I mean, I wasn't crazy about the game, but I saw it for what it was, and yeah, like they did a fantastic job for the amount of time and budget they had, and it sucks that they ended up getting a spotlight just so everybody could point out how it wasn't Gran Turismo. So
such a strange decision too, because it would have made more sense given that limited time and budget for them to do another MotorStorm, especially around launch.
Yeah,
that was great on PS3. I remember when PS3 came out, what I was most excited about in the first couple of weeks of the machine's launch was actually the demo for MotorStorm, just because it looked so great.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, they're getting another shot, and that's fantastic.
That's cool.
Also announced Guacamelee 2.
Sold again.
From Drinkbox Studios, yes.
4-player multiplayer.
Yeah, although, I mean, this was announced at a PlayStation conference. I think I may wait until there's a Switch version.
Yep, that was my first thought too.
I'm excited about it because I love the original Guacamelee, and I own it on like every console thanks to it being part of PS Plus and Games with Gold and all that stuff. And I think I even have it on Wii U in part because it was part of a Humble Bundle at one point.
Okay,
so I have it on everything. So I'm ready for the sequel. Looks great. Looks like more of the first game. So I'm totally down with that. So waiting for that Switch announcement.
Yeah, Spelunky 2 looks cool too.
Spelunky 2, yeah. That I couldn't get into the game. I tried.
Me either.
Couldn't get into it, but a lot of people love that.
Yeah.
And that is
but again, both of those games really do feel like they would be best on Switch, just because those are long burn games that you're going to spend a lot of time on. So
it's true.
Yeah, but then again, you just said that Guacamelee you bought on multiple machines, so I'm assuming if 2 comes out exclusively for a window on PS4, you'll buy it on that and just buy it all over again on the Switch when it comes out.
I think it depends what else is coming around that time. Like if it comes out on PS4 and it's an exclusive or a timed exclusive, and there are a lot of other games in my backlog or that I want to play that are coming out around that time, I can wait. So.
Well, and do we know for sure that it's not coming to Vita? Because Drinkbox actually did really well on Vita. It's not totally dead in the Eastern Territories. Fingers crossed, maybe?
I don't think we know.
I don't know. I mean, that's where I played through. It was on Vita. Although
Yeah.
I think that was one of those great crossplay games. So
It was.
Yeah.
I played it across PS4 and Vita, or PS3, whichever it was, and Vita. So
Yeah. We also got a new trailer for Spider-Man, which continues to look awesome.
amazing.
Looks so good. Yeah, that trailer got me to ping Brian Intihar on Twitter and just say, "Can't wait, day one purchase."
Oh,
I
yeah.
can't wait.
Yeah, I can't
Looks
wait.
so good.
Hopefully, it'll be out in 2018. I imagine it'll be out in 2018.
Well, and I'm trying to
Yeah, I would
think
hope.
like of the titles that have been announced for release in 2018. Maybe Red Dead Redemption 2 is the only game that I'm looking more forward to, and that's a neck and neck thing for me.
It's pretty close for me as well. On that, we saw a little bit more of God of War.
Yep.
As well.
I've heard
the combat's going to be
it.
different.
Yeah, I've not paid much attention to it since seeing it at E3.
I haven't really either, in part because I just want to play it.
Yep.
Yeah,
I don't really care to see all these trailers that present like complete scenes or complete sequences.
yeah.
I just want to play the game. I don't really care. Like, give me a launch trailer when it's coming out.
Well,
Don't show me anything else.
when CJ and I were walking the show floor at E3, we bumped into the guy that was the boss for both of us many years back, John Davison, and he was saying that he was very pleasantly surprised by just how story-driven a lot of Sony's content is right now.
Yeah.
And, that in an era where we're looking at Anthem and stuff like that, it's just really nice to see like those big, meaty games. And God of War, I'm really excited about too, because it's been long enough. The God of War 3 was ages ago, and Ascension was fine, but it wasn't like the proper sequel to God of War 3.
Right.
Yeah. All right, and then we had two trailers that kicked up some controversy that I'd like to discuss as well. So first up, Detroit Become Human. Got a new trailer for that. It was really they showed a complete sequence. So it was a single father who has an android companion that's going to help with the child care, and it turns out that he's an abusive father and is abusing the daughter. And they have some pretty graphic scenes, and it sort of hints that you'll be able to, as the android, pick different outcomes and what happens when you make those decisions. And it's pretty extreme.
It was a very unsettling child in peril thing. And what's interesting to me is if you do it with zombies, people seem to be okay. Remember how people responded to that Dead Island trailer many years ago?
I don't even remember that. I've heard a lot of people talking about that. I don't even remember the Dead Island trailer because I didn't care about Dead Island.
Oh, well, I mean, I didn't care about the game either, but that trailer, you should revisit it, especially in light of this. But again, the thing is that was a real kind of arty trailer. This hit me in a similar way emotionally, but I didn't feel good about it at the end. And I like, the Quantic Dream stuff. I'm definitely going to buy that game, but it did feel pretty manipulative to me. What did you feel when you were watching it?
I felt like I didn't want to see this out of context of the game, right? I mean, every trailer that they have put out for Detroit has been like a different situation where, you're playing as the android and you have to make certain emotional responses. I mean, that feels like what the whole game is, right? So with that context, I sort of looked at the trailer and kind of, put it in the corner of my eye while I did something else. And it didn't specifically hit me. I mean, I didn't want to watch all of it because I want to see this game in context. Right.
Yeah. I can see that. I mean, the thing is more people are talking about Detroit now than they have since other reveals. So that's obviously kind of the intention. I'm not defending that at all, but right. I think
don't like that.
No, nor do I.
But
I think that to add to that, because that's come up a lot in other conversations about this game. But I think they are assuming that people will then say, well, we've played other games from this development team, and so we understand we're seeing something that's not in a specific context. But I do think it is important to have that context there to make us feel like we're not watching something that's just designed to exploit us. I remember Francis Coppola was explaining to George Lucas, apparently in the 70s, that, and this was when THX 1138 came out. He said, you got to make your movies more emotional. And George Lucas's response was, well, I could just snap a puppy's neck on camera and that's going to get a response. That's easy. Right. That's not what you want to do, though. You want to do something that actually resonates with people long term. And I felt like they kind of, in two cases in this event, snapped a puppy's neck.
I think you're right. I think that's as sadly become what video game trailers are, and for some of these games where they feel like they have to up the ante, and they have to show you like a half dozen different complete sequences from these games before release to kind of keep the interest going. And I think that hits a wall at Paris Games Week. I didn't think this was necessary to use as a game trailer, especially since you take the entire story without any context. There's no emotional attachment to any of these characters, and you're just witnessing a scene of incredibly graphic and intense violence.
And I think the inherently celebratory tone of the Paris event also increases the discomfort, because you're kind of meant to cheer, I think, when you're watching these kinds of trailers. That's the whole point of having that audience that they're capturing. You're listening to the audience responding while you're watching the trailer.
Right. It reminds me of that E3, The Last of Us, which back in 2012, which is, I think, after they had announced that the game was being worked on after the first trailer. The second trailer that they showed ended with that shotgun blast to the face.
Yep.
That everybody cheered, and that also felt similarly uncomfortable.
Yeah, well, I remember, and I went to see a midnight movie screening of Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer back when I was in Chicago, because the director went to the college I went to. And it was one of the most unsettling experiences I ever had in cinema, because when awful things were happening on screen, the audience I happened to be sitting with was cheering it on. And it just really was upsetting. And that this isn't too far removed from that when you hear the hoots and hollers.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I think then exacerbated the situation with Detroit in particular is the interview that Eurogamer did afterwards with David Cage. And it's an interesting interview. I think the interviewer went in with a bit of an agenda.
I think.
So, well, I think a lot of people are focused on David Cage's basically horrible responses to the questions. I do think the interviewer is kind of goading that sort of response. I'm actually surprised that a PR person didn't step in and stop it, quite honestly.
Yeah. Right.
But for some reason that didn't happen. But one comment in particular that I want to pull out of this is the whole thing where David Cage asked the interviewer. So the interviewer asks, says, domestic abuse and child abuse is quite extreme. And David Cage asks him a question. And I'm quoting here. Would you ask this question to a film director or to a writer? Would you? And the interviewer says yes. And to me, if I saw a movie trailer where the trailer itself was just a scene of intense violence like this, yeah, I think as an interviewer, I would ask the director about why they chose to characterize their work using this sequence. I think that's a fair question. Right.
Well, and the product itself. I remember, ex-host Greg Ford and I went to go see a movie called Wolf Creek, which came out on Christmas, and it had some of the most deplorable kind of torture stuff in it that we almost walked out of the theater and kind of wish we had after the movie was done. And of course, we would, in a case like that, ask the filmmakers, if we had the opportunity, why did you feel you had to push those buttons?
Right. What do you think, Greg?
I didn't watch. I haven't seen the Detroit trailer, but I mean, I think for me, I don't feel like this is what trailers have become. But I think when you and I don't know enough about Detroit to say this for sure, but more like The Last of Us, I think when you've got sort of a deeper, when you're going for a deeper story, a deeper single player experience that's story driven, it is hard to stand out against Call of Duty and Destiny and right. Like, I mean, those,
Sure.
And I'm not saying that any of those are gratuitous. I mean, they're not gratuitous to the point that you watch them and you're uncomfortable. So you need to stand out somehow. And unfortunately, that means that a lot of, I would think, marketing departments and maybe the directors of the games feel this way, that we need to show something that's going to make a lasting impression.
Yeah.
Not necessarily to the audience that's already decided that we're going to play this game, or these are the kinds of games I like, but to an audience that would normally be hooting and hollering for Kratos grabbing a monster's head and tearing it in half, or you know what I'm saying, like, or any of those, any shooter really, like,
which actually we haven't gotten in the we didn't
right,
get
which
that
is
in the God of War
weird,
trailer.
right?
Yeah.
Or extreme violence, extreme language, extreme, sexual content, that sort of thing. So, but all that being said, I agree with you guys. I think out of context, and I mean, I move on to the Last of Us trailer here. I'm a huge. I consider The Last of Us probably my favorite game of the previous generation.
Me too.
I can't wait. I can't wait to play the sequel. I've been dying to play the sequel. And that trailer really turned me off. I get it, and I know, having played The Last of Us, that is part of the narrative, is the extremes that humans in that situation would go to.
Sure.
Because there were scenes in the original game that were pretty gruesome. But to have it sort of sitting on its own as a teaser with no context, I actually had to watch it. I had to try to watch it twice. I turned it off the first time. And then I did watch it the second time. And I mean, when you sit there and you look at it sort of dispassionately, you can see a lot of hints and everything for the story, and that's great. But I think it might also, the other issue that might be happening here, and Ethan, I think you touched on this a little bit when you were first talking about it, it's that we see teasers for these games so early now.
Yeah.
When you have something like The Last of Us, it's not as big a deal because it's a Sony first party, AAA, Naughty Dog, like all those bits and pieces sell themselves.
Yeah.
When you have something like Detroit, did Beyond sell? Like, I don't know. I don't know if people even remember David Cage's work so much. So the fact that you've been showing it for years now,
right,
you've got to up the ante, especially as you're getting closer to release. You've got to up the ante, and I feel like they chose the wrong way to do that. But
that is I
understand the need to make a splash and be memorable.
Yeah,
and maybe it worked. I don't know.
I do want to address one thing that's kind of coming up in the chat. Video games are violent. That's absolutely true. I play violent video games. I play Friday the 13th. I played The Last of Us. I played Until Dawn. I play, games that have violence in them, and those are in context, right? If I had seen a trailer for Friday the 13th that was nothing but the brutal kills, I probably still would have been interested in playing it. It's because it's Friday the 13th, right? But I mean, a game like The Last of Us 2, where we don't know anything of the story. We don't know anything of the characters. And this is the way, and it sounds like Naughty Dog is the one who made the decision on what to show. This is the way they introduce those characters, is by dragging them through the woods and then hanging them and then banging their elbow with a hammer and all this other stuff.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't need to see that part out of context. Like, if you show me as part of the story, like, oh, these are horrible people and this is something that they did, and you shouldn't, you should want retribution on them and all this other stuff, like, fine, show that to me in context. But out of context, it just feels gross.
Yeah, I think that's it. And that's and I mean, I'm not trying to say, like, I'm not trying to act like a prude here or anything. I mean, I get it, and I understand the mechanics and the use of extreme violence, especially when you're trying to develop a character. You know, it is important, and it is important in the context of, and I keep going back to The Last of Us because that's the one I watched. It is important in the context of a character, you know, and I will say, had I seen that in the middle of a game, it probably wouldn't have caught me as completely off guard as it did. In the trailer. And it's just, you know, the fact that I didn't know who any of the characters were at all, it just.
So and I want to challenge
the wrong impact.
I do want to challenge that though for a second, because I've heard that many times, this idea that it would feel better or it would feel more relevant if you knew the characters. Because when you look at the very beginning of the first Last of Us, right? Joel, just as he's being introduced, you know, his daughter is killed, right? And it's a horrible thing. It's like it just pulls at you as a parent. But that character, you don't know yet. You know, and so they're showing something that is absolutely terrible right at the beginning with characters you don't know, and we're okay with that there, right? But the context is literally beginning of the game. It's like we haven't grown with these characters yet. So bear that in mind.
Well, too. I'm not going to agree with that, because the game, The Last of Us, actually started out. There was a fair amount of character development stuffed into that game before you got to that point. I think that was almost
true.
20 minutes in, and the entirety of the game up to that point was establishing the relationship between the father and his daughter.
Yeah, sure. That's a reasonable.
They came home, and you learned a lot of things. You learned, I mean, I don't remember if it was actually established, but you learned that her mother wasn't there.
Yeah.
You learned that they had a very close relationship, that they relied on each other. You learned that it was his birthday. You learned that she had gone and gotten him a present that she really couldn't afford because she was, you know what I mean? Like there was a lot of nuance to that opening scene, and it's actually one of my favorite things. And I've said before that in that scene, when what happens to his daughter happens, I actually wept. I mean, I would have anyway, because I'm a father, I think.
Yeah.
But it had a lot to do with the fact that I was already attached to those characters, because they were so human right from the start. They did such a fantastic job. And like I said, yeah, the violence is going to happen in that game. That's what The Last of Us is about. But I don't know. I just found it off-putting. Chris Balserac in our chat actually just said, you know, the point of a trailer is to start a conversation. And clearly they've done that. I felt like it kind of a choice. But
here's the thing. To bring it back to movies, they have red band trailers for movies
that
where they show footage of that is meant for an adult audience. And this was a Paris Games Week presentation that was in the middle of the day, U.S. time, right?
Yeah, that to me is
live streamed on the PlayStation YouTube channel, and they were promoting this, and the fact that suddenly you have two trailers almost back to back with extreme violence, it was just very jarring. And
no, I think that's a really good point too, CJ, because I did hear this argument from somebody else. And I mean, my kids, I wasn't home with my kids and we were watching this thing, but if that had been the case, I would have been very upset as a parent that had happened. And somebody in our chat just said, like, good luck getting out of the theater in time for a Red Band trailer. Yeah, okay, but I don't see a lot of Red Band trailers in theaters.
I don't.
The thing also,
they're in front of R-rated movies.
Yeah.
When you're talking about a game that's a sequel and you want to start a conversation, again, let's look back at film as an example. We went, as I said, to see Thor today, and they had the trailer for The Last Jedi. And that trailer continues to toy with the question of what Rey's background is, right? And that allows you to still have an interesting conversation walking out of the theater in this case, right? They could have done things like that, a couple back and forths between Joel and Ellie that I think would have been more compelling and would have tied more meaningfully to what players experienced in the first game.
So yeah, and I think that goes back to the argument of that would have been more compelling to us. But if you're a gamer that's more interested in, like I said, Destiny 2, Call of Duty, World War II, whatever you want, the more action, or Wolfenstein, Castle Wolfenstein, right? Yeah. Wolfenstein Returns, sorry. You've got to stand out, and I don't believe that trailer was actually for those of us who have been sold on a sequel to The Last of Us since the second we finished the first one.
I'm not sure that's the case.
But I mean, there was information in there. I think that those of us who know who those, not that character affiliation, I guess.
Yeah.
But
Clipper wings, that type of thing.
Right. But the shock factor, I don't think was for us so much as it was for people who aren't fans of the series.
Perhaps. I thought it was a weird way to end their presentation.
It's a terrible way to end a presentation.
Considering that The Last of Us 2 is a hotly anticipated game. And then you show that trailer. Probably not the best decision. The other thing I would say is, so later they posted a blog entry from Druckmann, and they have a video that goes with it on the PlayStation YouTube channel. And actually, I thought it was really interesting because I think that gives it a little more context. So the way that he was framing it is that they're very proud of the technology that they have in terms of performance capture since the first game, and they've learned a lot on Uncharted 4, and the way that they capture performance now is so different, and so they can just get all this raw emotion out, right? And from that angle,
sure.
And if you watch that video of him talking about it, they actually don't show the more extreme parts of the trailer. They kind of gloss over it, but it's like, yes, okay, now I kind of understand what you're talking about. Like, you chose to show this scene because you're proud of the technology and the capture performance. That makes sense. That's in context, right?
Yeah.
But at the Paris Games Week presentation, there was no context provided. Right. And it was like, I would have at least give me that little bit of a preamble to the trailer that I was about to watch. Then it still would have been very extreme, but I would have understood it. Right?
Yeah, I would have
understood why you're showing me this.
I think the buildup makes a difference. Like I said, it's not that I don't ever want to see that stuff for, if it fits within the context of a story and it makes sense for the story, fine. Like, I'm thinking of, I started playing Wolfenstein Returns, or Return to, I forget what the actual game is called, the New Colossus. I just started playing it this week just to turn it on, and I don't know if you've heard, or if you've played it, or if you've heard much about that intro.
I've heard it's intense. I don't know much about it.
Crap, is it intense? And I mean, I'm not saying it didn't bother me. It made me mildly uncomfortable for sure. And I sat there with my jaw hanging open for a lot of it. But there was a preamble. There was a lead up, and they established the character before. If I'm thinking of, because a lot of it's done in a flashback, and if you took the flashback and the flashbacks, I should say, and splice them together and release that as a trailer, it would be the same situation. But when
my
you
understanding,
put it in the context of the intro, it's still shocking and it's still uncomfortable, but at least it makes sense.
My understanding is that some of the more intense stuff you can actually physically move the camera away from as well, so you don't have to actually.
Yeah, but it's pretty hard to avoid knowing what's going on.
To me, this was like, imagine, so Modern Warfare 2 has that sequence, No Russian.
Yep.
I'm sure you remember it.
I hated it.
What?
I hated that sequence.
Yeah, a lot of people did. Imagine if they had used that as a marketing beat for Modern Warfare 2. That sequence. Like, that's what this sort of represents to me. Like, and the game developers
I don't
proud of that sequence, but like seeing it on footage was just I thought No Russian was what?
I debate that though, because with Call of Duty, that game is principally a multiplayer game that, yes, does have a story mode, but I mean, Last of Us is all about character and story. So,
well, I agree. Yeah.
And I think, and I'm not
marketing Modern Warfare.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. That scene. Whew.
But my assumption also is that, like, with Call of Duty, that is one small part of a much larger game. But I think that what Last of Us 2 is trying to do, it's a tone piece, right? It's demonstrating that things have gotten even bleaker. It's even darker than Last of Us 1 was. And so I think that probably, it's gonna be relentingly that kind of dark tone through the course of that game. And I think they're just setting people up for that.
Yeah, I agree. And I almost now don't want to watch any more trailers for The Last of Us 2. I just want to play the game. I want to get all that context. I don't want to see more sequences like this outside of playing the game.
Yep. I think that's fair. And also, there's not a single person who's criticized it who has also said, and I'm not playing this game.
Right.
Well, it certainly diminished my enthusiasm for the game.
I guess I wouldn't say that it diminished my enthusiasm, but I think the way the way that it failed, as far as the type of fan that I am, it didn't make me more excited.
Well, yeah,
for it.
It's true.
I think that's fair. I think the other interview that Neil Druckmann did, they should have run that context with the trailer that they showed, because that
it would have made
encapsulated everything for me and made me feel a little bit better about it.
That makes a lot of sense. I wonder if, in part, it's a European thing. If the tone of that trailer in Detroit, just maybe they were a bit more blasé about it because it was coming from Paris. I wonder if they would have shown those pieces at E3.
I don't know. I think they probably would have. But it was real weird coming off a week where I played a ton of Mario Odyssey, which is a very joyful game. To then suddenly be reminded, oh yeah, video games are violent. Yeah. Anyway, let's talk about Xbox One X.
Yeah.
It's out this week. It's out Tuesday.
Yep. All the press were getting them last week.
All the press were getting them and reviewing them.
Yeah, with a mountain of codes for brand new games too. That must have been a nice package to get.
Yeah, brand new games and games that have 4K patches.
Yep.
So that's good.
Which are apparently gigantic patch sizes too.
I would think they would have to be, wouldn't they?
Yeah.
Quantum Break.
I can't believe that they bothered.
Quantum Break, which I actually really like. Quantum Break. Say what you will. I know it got some.
I liked it too.
I know it got some bad reviews, but I quite like that game. It has a 94.7 gigabyte patch.
Yep.
So, if you want to download the optional TV pack, that gives you another 75 gig. So 178 gig for the game.
See, what I'm still dying to know, though, is what percentage of people who are buying the Xbox One X already have a 4K TV? Because the issue that I have, and same thing with PS4 Pro, is I'm super excited by new technologies. I mean, I own an HTC Vive, right? I own a PSVR. But the thing is it's to get excited about Xbox One X, I first have to commit to buying a 4K TV. And that's just one step too far. But I just wonder if there's if in fact, maybe with the early adopter crowd, I've become the minority and most people already have 4K TVs. I don't know.
I think that may be true. I think there is a crowd of early adopters that already has 4K televisions, right?
Yeah.
I think you're just getting too old to be part of that early adopter crowd anymore.
I think that's what it is.
And I mean that in all seriousness. I mean, because you're not in your mid-20s anymore. You're not in your early 30s anymore. You probably don't have as much disposable income as you once did.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, you buy a fair amount of stuff already. Like you just said, I mean, PSVR and Vive alone, I think you bought those in the last year and a half.
Yep.
So I mean, that's that, along with I think a computer to run it. So you're talking about thousands of dollars there. But I mean, I think you've also got 2 kids.
Yeah.
You've also got a lot of other obligations that when you think back to your early 20s, your mid 20s, your obligations were mostly paying your rent and feeding yourself.
Yeah, for sure.
That's about it.
Well, thinking back 10 years, 10 years ago, I was living in Houston still, and I would have the disposable income to buy a 4K television and an Xbox One X. Now, that's not really on the menu for me, but I'm sure a lot of people end up slightly jealous of those people that have.
I am too, but I think the other thing, sorry, just to add one other thing there, and I think that this will actually have an effect, and I think probably 4K television sales are probably really brisk. I don't know. But for me personally, 10 years ago, I would have been more excited about getting a 4K TV than I probably will be for the next 5 years, because
that's true.
I use my television a lot more. I don't anymore. And most people don't. The way we consume video media now has changed so dramatically in the past 10 to 15 years. I know people still use it for Netflix and all that, but so many people have cut the cable for television. I'm guessing that a lot of that Blu-ray sales probably aren't as strong as they once were. I know I don't watch movies on my TV anymore. I watch them on my iPad, or I watch them on my computer, or on any number of devices that I have with me, as opposed to the one that's hanging off the wall.
That's a good point. I do think there are people who bought 4K TVs that they have on their desk and they use as a monitor that are hooked up to their game consoles, and they're using them from basically a foot or two away.
That's what I do. That's what I have right here. That's where I play my games.
For that, I'd be like, if that were my situation where I could sit at a desk or 2 feet away from my television, I would totally get that. I don't play games that way anymore.
Yeah. Well, and this is something I've mentioned many times before, but this past week I played Mario almost exclusively, and obviously a good part of that's because I think it's an amazing game, but I played that instead of Assassin's Creed Origins just because it was so much easier to access, and so again, if I bought that Xbox One X and I bought the 4K TV, that would be great, but then I'd get maybe 20 minutes between like 11 o'clock when the whole family's finally in bed and 11:20 when I know I better damn well get to bed to enjoy it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's part of the reason. I'm not as excited either, Ethan. I mean, I remember when the HD TV switchover happened, I couldn't wait to get an HD TV.
Oh yeah.
But back then, I was consuming so much more of my media on my television.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah,
consuming 100% of it almost. I'm sure.
Yeah,
because I was.
Yeah, and I am gonna really want to know how that Xbox One X sells. And I remember that the pre-orders were open for a long time. I don't know if they ever closed.
They did.
Yes. Did they?
So the Xbox One X Scorpio Edition closed fairly quickly, but I did see a couple places last week open them back up for the Scorpio Edition. So I guess we'll just have to see. I'm not sure that Microsoft will split the numbers out. Because I don't think Sony has split the numbers out, so I'm pretty sure Microsoft won't do that either. So we may not even know what the breakdown is.
And I wonder if it would be a different thing if people would just naturally be more excited about it if there were more first-party games this year that were worth getting excited about. I've heard Forza 7 is absolutely mind-blowingly gorgeous on that thing.
I've heard that.
Yeah.
And I'd love to see that. But if they had just like 2 or 3 more games of that kind of visual caliber, and one of them launched right alongside the Xbox One X, I wonder if that would feel different.
Well, and if they had Crackdown.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd buy it for the Xbox One, not the X, but I'd still be interested in playing it. I'm not playing anything on my Xbox One this holiday season.
Yeah, it's just my biggest fear is if I did end up doing that, because I've thought many times, even with the limited opportunities I have to use a TV, I've thought many times this year about upgrading. But the biggest fear I have is that it will feel a lot like when I now upgrade my phone, which for me is just like I'll get a new phone and it's like, oh, cool, but it plays exactly the same apps that I had yesterday, and there's no significant difference.
I'm right there with you. PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds coming out on Xbox One finally has a date, December 12th, which is like the last date they could really do to make 2017.
Yeah, before Christmas. Yeah.
Is it digital only or not?
So it's a code in a box. It is not a disc. So yeah, it's download only. But I mean, it's an online only game, so not much need for.
No, I just don't get the whole. What's the point? What's the point of creating that and shipping it?
What's the point
of it is to put it under Christmas trees.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Yeah. That's a big deal. I mean, coming from a publisher, it's actually a very big deal to be able to hit that. I think that is probably going to be the single smartest acquisition that any company has done this generation. I think it's way smarter than the Minecraft acquisition, which was, a good thing to have in Microsoft's portfolio, but it came, after the peak of that game. This, they're hitting it at exactly the right time, I think.
I actually am not sure. It'll be interesting to see, right? Because it is a very hot game on PC. I think it would have been better if they had this as a complement to an amazing holiday lineup. I think by itself, this is not as big a story as Microsoft wants and needs at this point. It'll be interesting to see, though. I mean, maybe people will totally be into. I'm sure a lot of people will be into PUBG on Xbox One. The other problem there right now, like the most played game on Xbox One, is Fortnite Battle Royale, and that's free.
Oh, right. Yep.
That's not $30, and PUBG is $30. So, yeah, we'll have to see.
Yeah,
I think it'll do fine. True. It'll do fine on console. It'll continue to be a monster on PC.
In our chat, L Young in our chat was like 2017 Game of the Year among adults. Fair enough.
Not on my list.
Nope.
But all right. Speaking of shooters, let's go quickly over the BlitzCon news, because really there were a couple of Overwatch things that I was really into. They introduced a new support character, named Moira, and that's awesome because I play mostly support characters, and her stuff looks awesome. I will definitely be back into Overwatch for that. And they introduced a new stage, Blizzard World, that has all sorts of references to Blizzard games that I've never played. So I'm going to be enjoying the heck out of that too.
Okay.
Yeah. All right.
Single player campaign, please. I would actually, if it broke out for $30, a single player campaign that was 6 hours, I'd do that.
Oh my God. I wish they would do that. I'd love that. I'd be totally into it. They should do that.
Actually, if you think about the way that game's structured, they could do something really interesting where, imagine if they said, we're committing to 4 single-player campaigns for our 4 most popular characters.
Well, they have 26 heroes. Let's do story modes for all of them. I'll be totally into that. Let's do it.
That'd be great.
Overwatch has 26 heroes?
Yes.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, that actually, to be fair, that is how you could get me to spend hundreds of dollars in Overwatch, because I would do that. If I could just buy for like, $20-30 a pop, those I would get every one, because Blizzard, they make amazing, beautiful games that run perfectly on every kind of hardware.
Blizzard, I think you've got a way to make Ethan go unlimited spend in your game.
Little
Blair Farrell in the chat, little do people know that Blizzard World is all Primal Rage, Blackthorn, and Lost Vikings.
I'd be into that. They did have there was some Lost Vikings reference in the trailer.
Was there? Nice.
Yeah. Anyway, let's talk about Switch for a second. Mario Odyssey.
We hate talking about Switch.
Mario Odyssey is the fastest selling Super Mario game ever in the US. Beating New Super Mario Brothers Wii, which was the previous one.
I mean, it makes perfect sense.
Fastest selling. So is it sold more than New Super Mario's Wii sold, or is it just by
in the first 5 days? In its first 5 days, Super Mario Odyssey sold 1.1 million units in the US alone, making it the fastest selling. And the Switch has sold 2.6 million units in the US now.
Wow. So it's a 50% attach rate. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
The machine itself, as I understand it, is on track to this year sell more units than Wii U did in its entirety.
I don't know if it's this calendar year or if it's the fiscal year, but you're right. It's starting to get ridiculous that it's going to beat the Wii U in its.
But I still want to say, though, I think that has more to do with how abysmal the Wii U sold.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, but let's look on the positive side. I mean, from a hardware and software perspective, I would say it's an easy argument to say that this is the best year Nintendo has ever had, with Breath of the Wild and Mario Odyssey, but also with the Switch and the SNES Classic. And all of those great other experiences like Splatoon and ARMS and a beautiful new rendition of Mario Kart and all of that. I mean, it's been an amazing year for them.
What was the NPD?
There's a reason we talked so much about it.
But I was talking about just let's not overinflate the importance of beating the sales numbers of the Wii U. That's all I'm getting.
Oh,
at.
that's true. That's true. I
Let's
mean,
just,
it's an
you know,
interesting
it's like
metric.
I can sit here and say it outsold the Virtual Boy in the first month. That doesn't mean anything.
It probably
you know, I think that speaks more to what a disaster the Wii U was than anything else. I'm not saying the Switch is bad. I'm just saying, you know,
okay.
when you start hearing things like it's selling on par or faster than the Wii sold,
It's close, actually.
then that's, to me,
Close,
that's the
actually.
impressive.
Yeah.
If it's close and it's $100 more, that's another thing to consider.
That's a good point. Yeah.
Hmm.
But Electronic Arts is apparently in no rush to develop for Switch. They said that they're going to wait until the Switch has been on the market for a full year before committing any resources to
I
it.
don't blame them. They're all Nintendo's, or these third parties are still feeling the heat from when they all jumped in and supported the Wii right from the start,
Yeah.
and all lost their
Well,
shirts
and the
on it.
Wii and the Wii U as well. Like there were,
And even I
several
would say even the
companies.
3DS and even the Vita, same thing. I'm
Yeah.
not surprised to see that a lot of the big guys aren't jumping in head first.
Well, yeah,
That's a
I
good
mean,
point.
Nintendo historically has been fantastic for first party and not so hospitable for third parties, even when, in the case of the Wii, the hardware is sold like hotcakes.
Well, yeah, but again, that wasn't Nintendo so much as it was the audience. That's what I'm getting at, is that I think that I think that these third parties are more wary of the audience, not Nintendo necessarily. I don't know how good or bad they were with third parties, but you know, but that's exactly what happened. Everyone saw the numbers on the Wii and they're like, oh my God, we've got to get something out there, only to realize that most of that audience didn't give a shit about the next Madden. Or
Or
you know,
they did give a shit about the next Madden. They were buying it on the Xbox 360.
Right.
Yeah. But I mean, I think that it is true that there's a bit of an audience mismatch in that I don't think that there's a single thing that is in EA's catalog that I would be super excited about coming over to the Switch. I can live without EA entirely and be totally fine. I'm not saying that's most gamers, but I don't care about Madden. I don't care about FIFA. I don't care about Battlefront. Those can all just never happen, and I'm fine.
Okay.
I mean, is there anything you guys are would like really want badly from EA on this platform?
No, because I have a PlayStation 4 and an Xbox.
Actually,
but if this was my I'll be
it's true.
We're gonna have this conversation. If the Switch was my primary console, yes, I want an NHL.
Okay.
I'd like to know the new Need for Speed is coming. I'd like to have the new Assassin's Creed. Sure.
Well, that's
I know, but I'm just saying we're talking about big third parties.
Yeah.
Sure.
I mean, I don't know what the whole since you're not interested in these things, plus the fact that we know you have two other consoles where if you were interested in these things like Assassin's Creed, you could buy it on a different console. It seems a little disingenuous just because you're not really being forced to make that decision. So it's easy to say that. And it doesn't really prove much about the market. I do think that it wouldn't hurt to have this stuff on that console. I think
that's true.
You can't spin it to be a good thing. It's definitely not a positive.
Well, and what's interesting is apparently, I don't remember if it was Eurogamer, one of the articles I read said that FIFA, not only did the game itself not sell very well on the Switch, but apparently the Ultimate Team performed really poorly on the Switch. And that's interesting, too, because obviously we know that EA is looking very carefully at ecosystems that are rich enough to support that kind of thing as well.
Sure, you got a largely portable system. I mean, the thing with the other two consoles right now and the PC is that 99.9% of the time those systems are connected.
Yeah.
Hard to make a quick microtransaction when you're on the road.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, for a company like EA that basically specializes in putting one game on multiple consoles, I can see why it might be a problem, because I'm not sure. I mean, the Switch being an underpowered console and being portable, I think it lends itself better to games like Mario and Rabbids and ports of older games, which, by the way, I'd love to see Dead Space on the Switch.
Yeah.
I'd totally buy that again.
Oh, could you imagine if they did Dead Space Trilogy?
Or did EA do the Saboteur, or was that somebody else?
No, that was him. Yeah.
That was EA.
Okay. I'd buy that
Those
too.
I totally agree. Those I would buy.
I'd buy anything that Rockstar puts on. Well, not L.A. Noire, but I'd buy almost anything that Rockstar puts on the Switch. I'm interested in Doom merely because I got sick when it was 60 frames a second on the PS4. 30 frames a second on Switch might actually allow me to play it
with Switch motion controls.
I don't care about that. But, I never played Skyrim. I'm probably not buying Skyrim, but, I mean, that's the kind of stuff that I'm interested in. I'm not interested in Madden or Need for Speed or any of that stuff either. I'm interested in ports, sure, or original stuff that can be brought to the platform that are interesting.
And I think that they would actually sell, relative to the cost of development, a reasonable number of Dead Space trilogy games, for instance. And again, frankly, exactly to your point, I would be way more excited about Dead Space trilogy on Switch than Battlefront 2 on PS4 or on Switch for that matter.
Or actually, if they did what they did, back on PSP, remember when they did that Burnout game on PSP that was like classic Burnout stuff?
Yeah.
I bring that to Switch. I'll play it.
Yep.
I'll buy that. Like, that's the sort of thing I'm interested in from EA.
Mass Effect trilogy would be great.
Yeah. Yeah, sure. Why not? No reason not to. Anyway, I guess we'll see what happens, especially with Ubisoft and Bethesda kind of leading that charge with AAA third party on Switch. Let's see how they fare, and then I guess we're gonna be revisiting this.
That's just it. If they're cashing checks and they're making money hand over fist, you watch Ubisoft and EA and Activision all start working hard to get their games out there.
Exactly.
That's just
a lot of content.
They're happy to let Bethesda be sort of the canary in the coal mine on this one, and because they all took a bath on the Wii.
They did on the Wii and the Wii U and the 3DS.
Well, hey, I am very happy that next week we're going to get Sonic Forces. I think it's terrific that Sega is stepping up and making sure that their big holiday game comes out on all the platforms, and it's of course a perfect fit for Switch. I can't wait for it.
I think I've heard that's not a very good game, but we got Sonic Mania.
Yep.
I'm happy about that. All right. Housemarque has said that they are leaving the arcade shooter thing behind.
Mm-hmm.
So Resogun, Stardust HD, Matterfall more recently. Those games have started not selling very well. So they are going to try something different.
Yeah, and I'm partly guilty of that. I picked up Resogun and I picked up Stardust. I think you couldn't not get Stardust. It ended up being free on both platforms. But Resogun was a great launch title. But the Matterfall game I did not pick up, and I heard it was terrific. But maybe it was a platform thing. We said it already a couple times. But if that was on Switch, just like Cine Mora, I may have picked it up.
I think that was funded by Sony.
But yeah, exactly. And that is just a bottleneck for me. I think also they've regrettably set the expectation that people will get this stuff for free, because Resogun also was a PlayStation Plus game, if I remember correctly, at launch.
That's correct.
Yes, it was.
Yeah, at launch, you're right. And then this came out like in the middle of August, and that week when like 18 other games came out on PlayStation. So it wasn't a good time to put that kind of a game out, I think.
I mean, I think we got to be careful what we pull from this, because Cuphead was very, very successful. Different type of game category altogether, but in terms of like an indie premium gameplay experience, it can work. It's just a shame that these particular core shooter games are not hitting the audience.
I think what's interesting about this story is they're leaving arcade shooters behind because they're not selling. That's no guarantee that what they try next is going to sell. Right?
Yeah,
especially since they have kind of fostered a fan base that really likes the games that Housemarque makes, the arcade shooters. So if they're going to abandon that, I'm not really seeing if this is a good move or not. I mean, it'll be interesting to see what their next thing is, but I don't know. I really don't know what to make of this one.
Yeah, it's again, I would like to see them continue to do this, because they do it better than anyone else. But I really am not in a good position to make that claim, having not bought their latest game.
There you go.
And did you guys get that or not?
I did not. No. Because it came out at the same time everything else did. It came out on the same day that Sonic Forces or Sonic Mania came out. So yeah. MCV has said the console games market is nearing a 50% digital tipping point.
Really?
That's right.
That's including
Activision,
microtransaction purchases, right?
No. Activision has said that digital sales of Destiny 2 on consoles accounted for over 50% of the total.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's something.
And a report from games industry shows that in some instances, AAA console titles are seen as much as 45% of their sales being claimed by digital.
I would really be willing to bet that a significant reason for that is the games as a service thing again, because if you're buying Destiny 2, you're anticipating you're playing for a year. So you're no longer saying, I want to get it physically so I can trade it back for $30.
I think that's right. Yeah, because
Sure.
I mean, as we've kind of said, the whole games as a service thing is, I think, in part to prevent or to keep people from trading the game in a week after launch.
And if you can preload, I mean, there are so many conveniences to digital.
Yeah, there are a lot.
That's true. It's true. I love it on the Switch.
Not to mention not having to store a bunch of game cases.
Yeah,
exactly. I love it on the Switch. Love it on PS4. I'm all digital on everything. And I'm totally fine with that.
Yeah, I'm frankly a little surprised that the digital isn't being pushed even more aggressively. I mean, I prefer physical, but I'm a collector. And
the only reason it's not being pushed more aggressively is because they don't want to piss off their big box store partners, basically.
It's true.
That's the only reason.
Yeah. All right. And I think that's it for the news. Wow.
That's it. Jesus, it's been an hour.
There's a lot of stuff. So let's talk about what we've been playing. Greg.
Besides a bunch of TurboGrafx games, like I said, I fired up the new Colossus, but I didn't play nearly enough of it to really talk about it too extensively, except to say that intro freaked me right out.
I watched you load up Mario Odyssey, though. I watched that stream.
I've been playing a lot of Mario Odyssey. That's a pretty good game. That Mario Odyssey.
Damn good.
You think
Damn
it's
good.
Man,
kind of good?
Oh, it's more than kind of good. I've been having trouble putting it down. I gotta say, if I wasn't doing Extra Life this weekend, I didn't have the kids this weekend, I probably would have spent most of my spare time playing it.
Yeah. What point are you up to?
I just finished New Donk City.
Okay.
And by finished, I mean, I've done enough that I can move on.
Okay.
Yeah. So
but
I
boy,
don't know how far into
the end of New Donk City is so good.
Should we talk about spoiler talk here?
Yeah, let's throw a spoiler alert out there just in case.
Yeah.
Just in case.
Yeah. If you haven't played it, skip to the next chapter.
I'd still like to, let's not go too in depth. Now, the thing that really strikes me about that game is that it controls, and I'm not saying it controls exactly like Mario 64.
Yeah.
Like exactly, except for the hat throwing, which I don't know why that
big thing.
I don't know exactly, and it did. I don't know why that resonates so much with me, but it just does.
But think about this though: no power-ups, right? No mushrooms at all. No lives.
No lives, which I think is smart.
I mean, I think they made a lot of really elegant changes.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like, it feels like you can trace it almost directly back to Mario 64, and I mean, it's got some DNA in there from some of the other games that they've done since, but it really feels like almost a true sequel to Mario 64. And yeah, you're right, they've made some really common sense upgrades, like the no lives thing being the main one,
which I love. I love that it's only a
10 coins.
It's a 10 coin thing, and you get as you die, you're probably going to collect 10 coins in the next 30 seconds.
Not to mention, if you get back to where you died, the coins that came out are still there.
Right. Yeah.
So
the other thing also that I think is so important to point out is they took so much care in perfecting the Easter egg hunt, right? This is a huge collectathon, but the way in which they introduce different tips, the way that things will be marked on the map, but you have to pull up the map to be able to see where it is that you have to go. It's not like you have a mini map that just makes you look at the top left of the screen or anything like that. You know, the fact that you know, the little bird will give you the name of what the moon is that you're trying to find, you know, which is itself a hint. I just find that whole thing is so riveting. The post game stuff. This again, we've had a spoiler alert, but this is a very minor thing. But like,
I haven't gotten there as well.
I know this.
Right.
I
don't spoil it for Greg.
I don't think this would spoil anything, but it just it makes it much easier after you finish the game to catalog what moons you have and which ones you don't.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah. And it's all just designed so well to keep you going and to never really feel like you have to go to YouTube to find the location of something or to check a guide.
That's true. And I mean, I played and finished the game last week, and I have been playing nothing but Mario Odyssey all this past week again, because you load it up, you're like, oh, you know, I'll just check out this one kingdom and mess around there. And then suddenly I've got like 22 new moons from that I'm bringing back to the ship. And it's like, how did that happen? Like, there are so many things to find in this game, and you're right, like it's an Easter egg hunt. And I do think, and I've been reading this on Twitter, like there are people who are not into that type of game, right?
I can see that.
They prefer the more linear version of Mario that we got with 3D World and 3D Land, and I totally respect that.
Yeah.
But this, I mean, the fact that there are moons everywhere, and you see something in the distance, you're like, oh, something's got to be over that direction, or you see something in the water, and you're like, oh, what's down there? And you go down there, and it always rewards your investigation.
It rewards the curiosity.
Yeah.
Well, and again, not I don't want to spoil anything, but the way in which additional content is unlocked after you finish the game, I think, is so clever, and it has an impact across every single world, which is fantastic.
Yeah, that was unexpected, actually, the way that they did that. But I really enjoy the way that they handled that whole thing. And like I was saying last week, it's similar to previous Mario games where the end, quote unquote, is nowhere near the end of the experience.
Yep.
And it's very true at this game.
I think CJ, what you were just saying is what really has resonated with me in this game is the scavenger hunt. I'm not big on that stuff. I've never liked Rare's games, the collectathon thing that they would do where you've got like, here are 15 different things that you have to go find all over the place. Like I think back to like Donkey Kong 64 when you can see the bananas, but you have to go through every world with each character because only they can collect that color banana. Or actually, I was playing this week. Somebody requested that I play Star Fox Adventures.
I saw that too.
Yeah, and it's like, oh my god, wait, oh, so here's this sixth thing that I'm supposed to be picking up now every time I see it.
Yeah,
but they easily could have. Mario Odyssey easily could have become like that, but I like that they limited it to basically to three things, which is coins, as in every Mario game, kingdom specific coins, which makes a lot of sense, and the moons. And there are so many of the moons, like I think it's actually a little bit of overkill, but the thing is that you find them so frequently. And you always feel accomplished when you find them. They've really balanced it beautifully. And you're right, like it's little things. Like one of the kingdoms that I was in, it was that one where you get the little you can take over the little guys that stretch out. So you spend a lot of it,
Kingdom.
Is that the Lost Kingdom?
Mm-hmm.
And just like you said, little things like I happened to be coming back around to sort of the main area where the bridge was, and just out of the corner of my eye I caught like a little purple flash under the bridge. Like, wait a second. I was like, oh, and the name of the moon is actually peeking out from under the bridge. That's the name of the moon. So and the game is filled with those moments.
And like you were saying, Rare, their spirit of collectathon is you talk to a character who's like, bring me 15 of these.
Right.
That never happens in Mario Odyssey. The most that you have there are a couple characters that ask you for like one thing, or if you see a particular character on a level, you know exactly what they want, and you know exactly how to handle that.
And I mean, to be fair, that does happen in Mario Odyssey because it's always the hat saying you need this many moons for us to get off this kingdom.
Well, that's true.
To fix the machine. But again, the levels are so beautifully designed that you feel like you've experienced the level completely, and that it's amazing to me, really, considering the relative randomness that you can find the moons in. How, for me, every time, like I've kind of felt like I've finished the level and I've got the exact amount of moons I need.
Right. Yeah.
Or maybe a couple extra.
Talking about finishing the levels, that again is such a satisfying experience to me, where I have found all but 3 of the non-achievement based moons in the level that unlocks after you finish the game. I have gotten all of the coastal kingdom moons. I've gotten all of the Hat Kingdom moons, and I am enjoying going through and finding every single one. The one minor frustration I have is that there are a couple, in some cases, that you can't get until other things happen in different worlds.
Sure, that happens almost everywhere, though.
Yeah, but
that's regular
fine.
course of the game too.
Yeah. I mean, that whole system there is kind of why I love this game. Right, because it's a interconnected web of finding all this stuff. Or you go into the game and you're like, oh, I'll play a few minutes of this, and suddenly you're, finding a shit ton of moons. Like and it's so much fun too, because you're never doing the same thing one after another. Right, you're always presented with some new scenarios intermingled with the things that are sort of the same on each level. But even with those, they find a way to mix them up so that it never feels like you're doing exactly the same thing.
Well, and the other thing is also the Easter egg hunt model suits the device so well. I have never gone clear on a Mario game. I didn't find all the stars in Mario 64. Or in Galaxy, but this, I think I will probably find all of the moons, just because it's really easy if you're out and about, if you have 10 minutes where you're going to play a game, to just find a moon and turn off the machine.
Yeah, and actually, I suppose this is another spoiler. You can buy moons from the shop, and then they don't run out of moons.
I don't like that. I understand why they do it, but I don't like that.
It's interesting, though, because if you are a younger player, or if you're a player who is not going to complete all of finding the moons in the level, but you want to unlock the content that is unlocked by finding moons, you can just buy them off of.
That's true. And they limit that to after the game is finished, the main story.
That's right. I just find that hugely interesting. A really interesting design choice, and one that I think makes the game fair for everybody. Along with the lives being 10 coins.
Yeah. Well, not only that, but think about how the 3 Mario Odyssey amiibos work, right? With with Peach, you double your health, and you can use it at any time. We were using it in the middle of boss fights. That's crazy.
That's
but it's great, right? Invincibility, for Mario, and then Bowser's my absolute favorite. Showing where the purple coins are is fantastic.
Yeah.
Right? Some people would never want to see that, but I like that it gives you all the options in the world to be able to play the game the way you want.
It's still not going to make you great at the platforming in the game.
No.
I don't know if you saw Game Informer did a video on the last level that unlocks in the game, and it's a super hard one, and it's pretty interesting.
Okay.
I mean, we've said that before. Nintendo's been great at, especially with their Mario games, at making them accessible to everyone. Well, almost everyone anyway, for years now, and I've always been a big fan of that.
Well, and also, and I won't go on a tangent on this, but I think it is important to call BS on companies like WB that say, oh, we want to sell people convenience to make it easier for them to get through the game. It's like Mario gives you all of that without charging extra.
I can't believe you made this.
Whoa.
Can't believe.
Didn't you just finish saying you use the amiibo for that stuff?
Right. But
that was just so you know, up here, buying the 3-pack would cost me, so that's the cheapest way to get them, $45. That's not charging for convenience. That is exactly charging for
that is exactly charging.
That is the opposite of what you just said. I'm just saying. I'm not trying to be a dick, but it is literally the opposite.
I guess it's just that that's fair.
You feel better about the purchase because you have a physical figure that you can.
Yeah, that's the difference
for me,
you can justify it because you justify it as buying a toy. But yeah,
and also it's giving you unlimited health power ups for one price, not consumable.
Right. Yeah.
Sure.
And
yes.
The other thing, you're absolutely right. I'm not going to disagree with that. But I will say that I went and purchased those amiibo before I had any idea what the functionality was. I bought them because I wanted the toys. So it didn't feel like an additional cost to me. But if you're buying them for that purpose, I understand.
Sure. Totally get it. But yeah, anyway. I agree on that it's not consumable. That is a key point. And because I have zero patience for that.
Yeah.
But yes.
Yeah. Well, I'm really curious to see what you think of the levels after New Donk. I thought the ending to New Donk was, or the quote unquote ending, was really great and unexpected since I didn't have that spoiled. There's a lot about the game and towards the end of the game that I hope you're able to experience without being spoiled.
I've done it so far, but I do have to come on this show with Ethan every week, so I never know. No, I got to say though, and maybe it's just me. New Donk City level design's great. I can't get around the feeling. I can't get around that Sonic Adventure feeling.
Oh yeah,
and I don't get it. Like, I just don't get it, especially considering these games are, like so beautifully realized from an aesthetic standpoint in general.
Mm-hmm.
The New Donk City thing, I don't get it. I don't understand.
Well, and what's interesting is there's a really good conversation on the Game Informer podcast where apparently one of the art directors on the magazine said that he actually thinks that the aesthetic consistency of Super Mario 3D World makes that game much more attractive than this one, which is just a mishmash of all sorts of different visual styles. I happen to like the novelty of like having realistic humans and a food world and all sorts of craziness, but it's definitely not consistent in any meaningful way.
That's true.
See, and I didn't know there was a food world, but
oh, sorry. That was in the E3 trailers and stuff.
Such an Ethan moment. No, I mean, the mishmash doesn't bother me so much as long as it's, I don't know. And I don't want to make a big deal out of it because I don't think it's a big deal, but it is so jarring. It's a nice looking area, sure. But it feels like this weird throwback, and not even a throwback for Nintendo. It doesn't feel like something Nintendo would ever do.
Actually, the thing that bothered me more was that when Mario bumps into Pauline after what one would think has been a very long time, she's pretty nonchalant about.
Not to mention completely different body proportions.
Yeah,
proportion like a real human as opposed to Mario. It's just weird. It's just weird. Yeah. And it's weird in the way. Again, it's weird in the way Sonic has been weird ever since Sonic Adventure. And because not only do you have this whole like super realistic looking setting relative to Mario, so he looks completely out of place even though he's supposed to be a person, but also anytime I find a game does this, and Sonic has always been bad for this, the models for the other characters are terrible.
Oh yeah, they are.
They animate horribly. They're very stiff. Like, yeah, it's just weird. It's very
somebody pointed out that there are no kids in New Donk City, so something is certainly going on there.
It also feels like a throwback because you're essentially on the top of very tall buildings that all disappear into a thick fog. It's just
that's right.
It's weird.
That's right. I do wonder if they're going to do DLC for this. I think there's a very good chance that they do. In part because they're, they did with Super Mario, New Super Mario U. They did the new Super Luigi U, thing.
That's easier though, one would think.
That is easier, yeah, sure. But I think they have a really strong basis, a really strong foundation with this game. I think they could add content to this, no problem, and it would still be just as fun. I think they could do side stories. not as involved as the original main story, and it could still be very satisfying to play.
I'm gonna make a call on this. I think that what is likely to happen is they're probably looking into doing exactly that, and it will probably wind up being Super Mario Odyssey 2 instead. Just like Galaxy 2 was supposed to be add-on content for Galaxy 1, and they just turned it into a whole new game. I bet we're going to get a sequel to this game in this generation.
I think you might be right. I wonder if this time it won't be DLC because digital downloads and the fact that Nintendo is doing DLC for Zelda Breath of the Wild, and they're even introducing a new bundle for Black Friday, the Explorers Pack, which doesn't include the DLC from the game, but it includes a 100-page booklet.
Right.
So, I think if you're talking about Blue Ocean Strategy, and I guess it depends where the other games on the Switch roadmap are or are going to be, if they're going to be ready sooner or if they're going to be delayed. I think it would be important for Nintendo to build upon this base that they have.
Well, they better communicate that early. I mean, Zelda communicated it before the game launched, and I bought the DLC day one.
They did. When did New Super Luigi U even...
I'm not sure, but anything that happened during the Wii era is not necessarily what one would want to repeat.
Well, that's very true. But I guess we'll see. But I think they could quite easily add stuff to this game.
Yeah, I'm just thinking there's going to be a handful of people that will get bored of the Easter egg hunt and will turn the game in unless they hear that there's more content down the road.
That's true. That's true. Yeah, you're right.
But it's a great game. It's lasting a lot longer than I thought. And I would say that the main game, it appears as if that's maybe like a quarter of the total amount of content that's in the game. I thought that you'd get like another, like twice as much content, but it's significantly more content that you're playing through than just, I think, a match for the amount of content you get in the first playthrough of the main story. What would you say?
I think you might be right. Like the main story is like 25% of the entire picture.
Yeah.
It's kind of crazy to say that. And I'm sure, like Greg, you've only played the end of New Donk City to hear that the main story of the game might only be 25% of the content.
I'll be honest. I mean, I'm really enjoying this game, but depending on what the extra content is, I don't know how much of it I'll play.
I thought the exact same.
Yeah, so that's great. I mean, hearing that you thought the exact same and you're still playing it means that I'll probably keep playing it. But yeah.
And for me, I have to say that this has been an incredible family experience too, where as I was driving back from Thor, my daughter has beaten the game, but she was in the back seat and she was playing to get more of the moons. And my son just finished the end of New Donk City. I don't want to spoil anything. As we were pulling up to get out of the car, and so it's just everyone in my family is playing this game and loving it, and I think that's just great.
Your wife too?
No, everyone who plays games.
Sorry.
There you go. All right, Greg, you been playing anything else?
No, nothing else of note. Like I said, a bunch of TurboGrafx games and. I played Star Fox Adventure. Game was awful.
It's awful. I love that you shouted out to me when you went in the store the first time.
Yes.
This is the part that CJ
I just remember you getting
like, why is that like that?
I know, but it's such a CJ when you did it on the review. I had to laugh because that's such a CJ moment for you to latch onto this little thing that you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right, but it's just like it was so ingrained in your brain. It's like the first time you went to the store, it's like, oh, I hate this part. It's been like 15 years since you played that game, and you still remember that you hate going into the store in Star Fox Adventure.
Well, here's the thing about that is that, I reviewed it and Shane and Milky reviewed it, and they gave it way higher scores.
Because it deserves it.
I was justifying my 4.5. I had to bring up things like, you go into the store by going down a ladder, running 5 feet across, and then jumping up.
You're on the right side of history, CJ.
and then running down a 100-meter hallway. Like, it's ridiculous. Like, why is it designed that way?
You both need to read my Game Now cover story and review of the game, and it will enlighten you, and you will see depths you haven't seen yet.
No, it's a terrible, terrible game that should have died. Yeah.
As Dinosaur Planet?
It should have died as Dinosaur Planet. Never should have been turned into a Star Fox game. But hindsight, oh well. Ethan, you've been playing something besides Mario Odyssey.
I have, and I wanted to bring it up because I think it's a really interesting story. I picked up for $30 at GameStop a game called Poi, P-O-I. Have you guys heard of it?
No.
Okay. So it's an indie game. It's done by basically two guys that partnered up. They both worked together at Zynga, working on, I believe, Cityville and Farmville. And in 2014, they decided to leave their secure jobs and start development on the game that was similar to what they loved to play as kids. And the game is very much like a Mario 64. The timing, of course, is very unfortunate given that that Odyssey just came out. But for a two-person team, what they've accomplished is really remarkable. I mean, you're used to seeing games that are taking on that kind of 16-bit aesthetic that are coming from teams of this size, like Tiny Barbarian, and a lot of those are quite good, but this is so much more ambitious. It's really trying to look like an N64 game, and a lot of the pacing of the game is really satisfying. The puzzles are interesting. It's rough around the edges. It's missing some transitional animations when you collect your medallions, stuff like that. But it's actually very colorful, very pretty. And the thing that got me interested was that Destructoid actually gave it a pretty positive review. But here's a game that failed its Kickstarter, but these guys persevered nonetheless and have ended up getting a game that just is dripping with Nintendo nostalgia on the Switch as a physical product that you can buy at GameStop. And I just think that that's so cool that this is two guys that probably were not loving what they were doing at Zynga and actually left that to pursue their dream and to make the types of things that got them into making games. So definitely check out Poi if you want something that is in the vein of Mario 64, and if you're willing to be forgiving of some of the limitations that come with the development of a game from a really tiny team.
Cool.
Sounds interesting.
It does.
Looks interesting. I'm just watching a trailer.
Yeah, it's really cute. Nice art style. They did a really nice job.
Alrighty. Well, what's the story of the game?
You are able to choose between one of two explorers, a boy or a girl, and you are basically just going on a globe-trotting adventure, collecting different medallions from different worlds. It's very simple. The story is kind of secondary to just setting the scene for the different kinds of environments that you would find in a game like Mario 64. So it starts with a place called Cozy Island, which makes it really easy to collect things, and then it gets increasingly more difficult in a fire island. What surprised me, though, was that I ended up playing like an hour and a half straight when I picked it up, and collecting all of the medallions for the first world. And this is when I could continue to play Mario Odyssey. So of course it doesn't hold a candle to Mario Odyssey, but it's interesting that it was novel enough to hold my attention for that long. And I do look forward to finishing the game.
Cool. All right. Well, I think maybe we do like one tweet.
Yeah, I don't mind telling you, I'd like to go to bed
and say goodnight. Or we could just
no, let's do a couple tweets.
Okay. Well, let's do it. Let's look for a good one. Let's see. Let's do this one from hacker alias KSO514, who says, "What game have you tried convincing others to play but could not get them interested? I tried getting others into the Sin and Punishment games with little to no success." I think that's an interesting one because Sin and Punishment, I do think, is one of those where you really have to appreciate that genre. And
yeah,
I appreciate the game for what it is. I don't love it as much as a lot of other people do.
I would say like maybe Guitar Man would be a good example of that. Because I just thought that game was so charming and interesting, and I've shown it to multiple people, and the reaction more often than not is just like, meh. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd say Sonic Mania, trying to get my kids into that. They think it looks old, so they're not interested.
My son's the same way. I don't want to play those pixely games.
Right. It's funny. And speaking of Poi, I tried to show that to my son, who's now obsessed with Mario Odyssey, and he's like, "Oh, no, that looks like 75% worse than Mario." And I'm like, "Yeah, but it's
I really
fun
hope he said
style."
that.
He did. He actually said that, and I said, and I tried to.
Your son.
Yeah, I tried to stop him by saying, "No, but Ali, all boys like Poi," and he's like, "No, not this boy."
Oh my gosh. For me, recently Friday the 13th.
Yeah, with almost everyone.
With almost everyone, and nobody,
especially on this show.
Nobody wants to play it. Damn it. That game's great. And then Too Human.
Yeah, but that's just a bad game.
It's a classic of our time.
The hell out of it, didn't you?
I love that game. It's great. I mean, it's great in all the worst ways. But
my God.
Yeah. I don't know. Yeah. Dance Dance Revolution. I used to try to get people to play that. To varying success.
I always found with Dance Dance Revolution that I could get people to play that game.
Yeah.
Everyone at least thought it was interesting enough that they wanted to try it.
Samba de Amigo.
Yeah, same with that. I remember the year that came out, I came home for Christmas because we were still in Chicago at that point, and I came home for Christmas, and I brought home the Samba de Amigo pack, like the maracas and everything. And my entire family, and I'm talking like aunts and uncles and great aunts and cousins, and like everyone wanted a try at that game.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool.
Yeah.
Well, to flip the question, what about times in which someone has tried to impress upon you that a game is really awesome that hasn't taken? So for me, like when I was at Sega, we had a product manager who just loved Soccer Manager because we had purchased Sports Interactive, and that game, like that series outsells The Sims in the UK. It's huge, and he was talking about how amazing it was, and I just kept saying, but it looks like TurboTax. I just don't, I can't get it. So anything not take for you guys that was pushed on you?
Oh yeah, that's happened lots of times. The Dark Souls games, for one.
Yeah.
I've been told so many times, like if you just stick with it, and you're actually doing. I remember what was the one that the show actually bought us?
Bloodborne.
I remember Bloodborne, and people telling me, especially my friend Jim, who's big into those games, telling me like, yeah, because I was like, oh man, I suck at this. I just can't stand it. It's like, no, you're actually doing really well. It's like, well, I feel like I suck and I hate this game. I just hate it. Yeah. Like that's the most recent one I can think of where I was told like, you'll love this, and I play it and I'm just like, ugh.
Yeah. I had GTA. It's probably one where a lot of people have said, "Oh, this game's great. You should check it out." And the gameplay just never clicks with me for whatever reason.
Huh. So have you never finished a GTA?
No, never.
God, I wish they'd bring out a new GTA.
I liked the ones on the PlayStation that were top down. I thought those were fun. And then
you're weird, man. Nobody likes those.
Chinatown Wars. That's a good game.
Chinatown Wars was great. Oh my God.
The drug trade mini game.
Oh man. I so wish they would make another one just like that.
Bring that out.
I love the art, everything. I love the way they used the touchscreen on that thing.
Yeah, that was the most brilliant. That's the reason why I think you'll never see another one exactly that way, just because it was so perfectly tailor-made for the 3D or the DS. Was it
DS?
Yeah. 3DS,
yeah. Yes.
No, DS.
Like it just, I think it came out on Vita, and I think it came out on mobile devices too.
No, not Vita, PSP.
iPhone PSP. And Android also. Yeah.
And it was a pale shadow of what it was on the DS.
Yeah.
I wonder if it will come out on Switch. It might.
You never know. I mean,
Well,
it'd be a fairly new game for the Switch, but
GTA 5 will come out on Switch. Mark my words. I think
what?
Absolutely. Yes. GTA 5 will be a Switch game.
Well, I guess it was an Xbox 360 and PS3 game.
Have they legalized marijuana in California yet? Is that what's going on? Are you high when you come on this show? Or...
No. Oh, dude, I would bet. I'd make a $200 bet right now that that's coming. Do you want to make a bet?
Bet. Yeah, in calendar year 2018.
That it is coming out. No,
that's
it will come out.
No, that's
not enough.
That's not enough.
All right,
we need a year.
Well,
I will say, Rockstar is making a lot of money on GTA 5. If you check the updates they've made to GTA 5 Online, that's a pretty healthy population they've got going there. And they actually did a Smuggler's Run event. I don't know if you remember Smuggler's Run. It was an old Rockstar IP. Yeah, so I mean they're doing a lot of content for GTA 5 Online. That that business is not slowing down for them.
Oh, that's where they're making their money.
Yeah,
that's why I feel like we're not going to see a new GTA for a long time.
We will see one though.
Yeah, we will, but it doesn't feel like it's going to be anytime soon because you if you even follow, they put out a newer press release every few weeks about GTA 5.
Yeah, they do,
and the new content that they've got going on, or the special event they've got going on,
And this is the crazy thing, but I went into GTA Online once. I tried it. I said neat after about 45 minutes and never came back to it. And I finished GTA 5, the story. I love that part of the game.
Yeah, me too.
Sure.
And I'm not criticizing GTA Online. I don't know nearly enough about it to say anything pro or con, but it definitely didn't pull me in.
It's a good way to make money on Twitch and YouTube.
Yeah.
That's right. All right. I think that's where we leave it. Alrighty, and that is our show for this week. Thank you very much for listening. If you have a question for us or would like to comment on something that you heard, you can direct that to @P1Podcast on the Twitter, or you can go to our internet website at player1podcast.com. There you'll find our contact information. You'll find blog entries about Sega CD stuff from Mr. Greg Seward.
I can get back to that now that Extra Life is over.
There you go. You'll find episodes of Generation 16.
I feel like the new one will be done in about a week and a half.
Awesome. What else we got? We got show notes. Yeah, if you go to player1podcast.com/574, you can get links to the stuff that we talked about, and including links to the games and the news stories and the trailers that we talked about, all that stuff. In case you heard something or thought you heard something on the show and you want to just check out more information, check out our website and the show notes for each episode, because I spend a lot of time putting together those links. So please look at those. We're also doing a t-shirt and a mug. Those links will be in the show notes. If you use the links that are in the show notes, you get free shipping if you're in the US. So
baldness,
if you're international, you don't get those, but we unfortunately couldn't do anything about that. What else we got on our website? We got a message board where you can discuss this episode with us and our other listeners. And also we got one of them Discord things. You know, those, if you like Discord for chatting about video games, we got one of those too. The link is in our Twitter profile. So you can check that out as well.
If you would like to subscribe to the Player One Podcast, you can do so by going to player1podcast.com or to the iTunes podcast store, whatever it's called, Apple Podcasts. While you're at the iTunes, download the app.
Yeah, or don't. Either way,
the Player One Podcast app has all the episodes ready to stream, all kinds of other goodies and fun stuff, and you can get that same type of app for that same price on the Android Amazon App Store.
Cheap.
Thank you. You can catch us every week live on YouTube at youtube.com/P1Podcast, usually at 8 p.m. Eastern. Although we were a little late this week. Thank you, CJ, for holding the show for a little while.
Sure.
You can catch us on Stitcher Radio. You can find us on Facebook. You can find us on Twitter at P1 Podcast. And if you like what you've heard, and Why wouldn't you like what you've heard? We're nice people. We're
Exactly.
entertaining. We're fun.
Sure.
We party.
Would you say perky? That we're perky?
We're
Not this late at night.
some of us.
Okay.
Head over to patreon.com/P1 podcast if you so desire, and please support our show. It's not the show is free. It always will be free. It always has been free, but it's not free to make. We have to pay for things like CJ's legal bills and
What's that?
server.
Oh, that.
server,
Yeah.
that sort of thing. So please, if you were so inclined, please go over and toss a few bucks our way. We really appreciate that. It does keep the show running. I think that's really it. Did I cover
True.
everything?
That does.
All right, CJ.
Yeah.
Thanks for hosting this week, man.
Thank you, Greg, for coming on the show after your Extra Life stream and all that.
Yep.
I
If you would let
really
it just be
appreciate it.
CJ and I, it would be nothing but Switch the whole time. So
Oh, I know. Trust me. He still said he wasn't going to be here. I was like, I got to show up tonight.
That's right.
And thank you, Ethan,
You're
for bringing
welcome.
the enthusiasm.
I try.
I know. And thank you to all our listeners for tuning in. And hey, why don't we do it again next week?
Yeah, let's
right.
do it. Sounds good.
See you then.
Bye-bye.
Bye bye.